Wordsmith, a story on creativity, writing skills, problem solving, and strategic risks. Written by ArmaniTalks. Narrated by Daniel Cryer. Chapter 1. Embarrassment wasn't quite the right word for it. Mortifying would have been better. Something like this didn't happen to Kaysen's family. Where they're from, it was honesty, work ethic, and a strong brand presence. But now, Kaysen's blunder was enough to tear the family down for lineages. Eventually, the family would recover. The question is, would Kaysen recover? Television watch rates were at an all-time high. Culture is intact like no other era. They say that when the consumers are watching television, then there's an invisible glue to society. It's because people love talking. More importantly, they love talking about what they just watched. When a show became popular out of nowhere, that's when that show would be spilling over to the water coolers, classrooms, and the workspace. After the recent surge of television shows based on reality, the network producers had the bright idea for another show, DUI Dummies. The name is catchy enough. The concept is even catchier. Record a drunk driver's interaction with the cops. The pilot episode confirmed the network producers' initial thoughts. The show was a hit. Seeing drunk drivers getting pulled over as they were bumbling and stumbling to explain themselves became comedy gold. What was even funnier was how they would interact with the cops. The police officers were stern and meant business. When they were talking to these drunk drivers, there was clearly a power imbalance, which made it hilarious. The show even had an element of unifying the viewers with a common enemy. DUI Dummies got inspiration from the show How to Catch a Predator, where there were sting operations to catch predators who were trying to meet up with a 15-year-old girl. The viewers in unison often felt, "Well, I'm happy to see that creep off the streets." The common sentiment built brand loyalty for the show. That's when the network producer realized they could do the same with DUI Dummies. I mean, who wouldn't hate someone who got behind the wheel after drinking? "Well, I'm happy to see these malicious drunks off the streets." That was the common sentiment. All types of people were caught on DUI Dummies. Doctors, students, lawyers. The show caught tons of people in the recording. However, only a few people would be chosen for the final cut. Kaysen was one of them. The sad thing is that Kaysen isn't a partying kind of guy. He's heavily introverted, shy, and a pushover. Picture a people pleaser, and Kaysen is the person that often comes to people's mind. He had a bright future growing up. The kind of kid who was gifted in his academic studies, but was average in everything else. Average when it came to talking to girls, average in sports, and average in looks. His academic success was supposed to allow him to become a top-level accountant. From there, he was supposed to get married, have kids, buy a house, etc. The typical American dream. The day that Kaysen was caught on DUI Dummies, it felt like his world stopped. Leading up to the release of the show, he got the contact information of the producers. He begged, no, seriously begged, the producers to not put him on the show. He notified them how he was rarely a partier, and this was not something that he was used to doing. He also notified the producers that he was the son of one of Virginia's finest criminal lawyers. Kaysen was the son of Enzo Enclosed. Enclosed was a nickname to show how many cases he closed with ease. Kaysen was also the son of Michelle Makeup, a popular brand mogul that sold women's fashion products. Kaysen was also the little brother of Billy. No cool nickname for Billy, but that didn't take away from Billy's flash as well. Billy was an entrepreneur who owned a herd of e-commerce shops that made him a six-figure earner at the ripe age of 26. The producers ensured that Kaysen had nothing to worry about.
"Kid, listen to us. We have tons of people that we can use on the show. No offense, but your reaction wasn't even spicy. It was a tad bit boring. You got nothing to worry about."
When the producer told Kaysen that, that's when his heartbeat started firing through the roof. Because Kaysen knew his reaction was that bad. When he was caught for drunk driving by the police officers, he started off lying. When the officers raised their voice to tell him to stop lying, Kaysen began crying.
sobbing about, "Trust me, officer, I never do this. My entire life will be ruined if you don't let me off with a warning."
That whimpering turned into horror when one of the officers introduced a host who said,
"Kaysen, I have to tell you, you're part of our new TV show, DUI Dummies."
That's when a herd of cameras surrounded the drunk Kaysen, and he broke down in tears. The idea of that vulnerable position being shown on national television terrified him, especially with the show being aired on a mainstream channel. All he did leading up to the episode release was pray and hope that nothing happened to him. It made the situation worse that his household was in a great mood. Enzo, Michelle, and Billy had a string of wins in their life, and all they could do was highlight how Kaysen looked sick and worried. "Everything okay, son? You've been quiet lately. Your face has been looking shriveled, too," said Michelle. "Yeah, Mom, I'm okay. Just got a few things on my mind." He can still recall the day the show was released. He was hanging out with his parents and brother in the living room and enjoying the television shows. That's when DUI Dummies was about to come on. Kaysen aggressively began telling his dad to watch Everybody Loves Raymond. "Come on, Dad. Let's watch Everybody Loves Raymond. Remember how much we used to watch that growing up?" Kaysen's dad wasn't having it. He said,
"We watch that show all the time. I have all the lines memorized by now. I want to watch these scumbags get caught on that DUI show."
The other two in the household agreed, outnumbering Kaysen 3-1. But Kaysen wasn't ready to give up. "Hey, I see Snow White is on. Mom, didn't you love that movie as a kid?" Hitting his mom's nostalgia was a lethal move that could possibly alter what was about to happen. "You know what? I did. That was one of the shows I recall watching with your grandma." An emotional look came over his mom's face, especially because his grandma had been sick. He could just poke a little further to make it happen. "Yeah, Mom, how about Snow White? It's about to start." She thought about it. Then she quickly pulled the trigger. She looked at her husband and said, "Hey, we can watch the rerun of DUI Dummies another time. Please, can we watch Snow White?" Enzo fought for a little, but it wasn't enough to overpower his wife's puppy dog eyes. She won, and they changed the channel to Snow White. Just another day that Kaysen could relax. "I'm definitely overthinking. I've been able to do such a good job in hiding the DUI so far. What makes me think from all the other people in the US that I'm going to be one of the rare few who gets caught on the show?" 40 minutes passes by. That's when Kaysen's parents and his brother's phones begin lighting up. That's when Kaysen's phone begins lighting up too. His heart sank. A bunch of texts on his phone.
"Hey, bro, I just saw you on TV.
You good? What the fuck, dude? Did you really drive drunk? I can't believe you, Kaysen. You're normally so responsible." As he was getting bombed with texts and calls from his coworkers, cousins, and friends, his parents and brother looked at him.
"Kaysen,
what did you do?" asked Billy in a mortified voice. All Kaysen could do was hang his head in shame. The months after that had been brutal. He got fired from his job. The townspeople would blatantly gossip about him, and his parents wouldn't even look him in the eyes. Their son had brought dishonor to the family, and they could do nothing about it. The days after the showing of DUI Dummies was intense. Billy would come into Kaysen's room every now and then to say that
everything would be okay. One day everyone would forget what happened and things would go back to normal.
Kaysen looked at his brother and began crying. "No, Billy, things aren't going back to normal. I ruined my life. Everyone knows about this. No one can look at me the same. I just made a mistake, Billy. I'm not a bad guy, but everyone thinks I'm a bad guy." He broke down and began crying. Billy came by his brother and put his hand on Kaysen's back. The two weren't affectionate by any means, so this was saying something. Billy rubbed on Kaysen's back and began giving him some encouragement.
"Look, Kaysen, we all make mistakes. It'll be okay. Nothing is going to happen to you. In a few months, everyone will forget about this. You'll get another job and everything will be back to normal. Okay?"
Billy was saying the words, but inside he felt like crying too. He knew Kaysen so well. Kaysen was shy, introverted, and would often be asked to repeat himself when he spoke. Now seeing how all these strangers viewed him as some sort of party animal who was an alcoholic was killing Billy, especially because it was Billy who convinced Kaysen to go out in the first place. Kaysen begrudgingly listened to his extroverted brother. Where Kaysen was low-key and quiet, Billy filled the room. He was the one who should have been caught on a show that covered DUIs. Billy lost count of how many times he had one too many to drink and got on the road. Each time he made it home safe. Seeing his little brother in such a shocking state made him feel queasy. Billy couldn't sleep, and his body felt like it was stuck in panic mode, sweating, waking up from nightmares, and wondering if Kaysen really did ruin his life. Kaysen was the normal one in the family. Where all the other family members had big dreams and goals, Kaysen was the one who always wanted an ordinary life. Kaysen, look, you can sit down and keep crying, or do something about this, said Billy. What am I going to do? You don't know what I'm going through. I ruined my fucking life. I went to get chocolate milk from 7-Eleven yesterday, and the clerk asked me if I was the guy from the show. Kaysen felt rage at those producers for blatantly lying to him. He was not the kind of guy to feel immense rage, but this feeling was something that couldn't escape his body. Because of those idiots, my life is ruined. What the fuck am I going to do now? I'll get them back, he thought. What was he going to do? His house was dark for the next few months. Although the members in the house talked, there was an elephant in the room. Kaysen was fired from his job, unsure what to do with his career, and suffering from emotional breakdowns when he least expected it. Chapter 2. 15 books. And these 15 books ranged from fiction to nonfiction. Despite the dark times, Kaysen found one refuge. The refuge was in reading. When he would read, he would feel like the nightmare finally ended. It's strange how he began enjoying books as of late. One part of that was because of the trauma of television. The DUI Dummies show was enough for him to have disdain towards television. He wasn't much of a radio guy, so for him to kill time, he was reading more. Growing up, he hated reading. He hated reading and writing, to be exact. Kaysen had this teacher named Miss Charnock growing up. She was this elderly lady in her mid-70s who would always lose his homework. He'd work on essays, expository and narrative included. He was expecting an A+, to only see that she gave him an F for not having done the assignment. Miss Charnock, I turned in the assignment. What are you talking about? Miss Charnock looked back in disgust.
Let me guess. You turned it in, but it magically got up and flew away. Is that what you expect me to believe?
No, I actually did the essays. I don't know why you don't have it. Then Miss Charnock proceeded to give him an F. The only way that Kaysen would pass the class is if he dominated the tests, quizzes, and group projects like a superstar. Since there was so much pressure to do well in those other fields, he felt a level of disgust working with language arts. Enough to hate reading. Now, to kill time, he was finding ways to calm himself with the same books he was forced to read in school. Lord of the Flies, To Kill a Mockingbird, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Kaysen wasn't too old, just 25, but he did notice that with some more life experience, he was able to resonate more with these books, especially To Kill a Mockingbird. In the book, there was a man named Atticus Finch who was a reserved man. He was the father to a daughter named Scout and a son named Jem. Atticus was assigned one of the most controversial cases in his town. He was assigned to represent a black man who was being accused of rape. The story of To Kill a Mockingbird was set in an era where racism was normal. This case was enough to ruin Atticus's life. It was a lose-lose situation. If he won, then he won defending a black man against a white girl. If he lost, then he failed at defending a black man against a white girl. Due to the era, any accusation against a black man was often seen as a death sentence for the black man. Throughout the story, Atticus's children felt the effects of the high-profile case. Their classmates began insulting them. Atticus's own sister even said that he was bringing disgrace to the family. Regardless, Atticus pushed forward. That's what Kaysen felt he should be doing now. Just push forward. He loved reading nonfiction books on finance, social skills, accounting, etc. But something about fiction books spoke to him. It's as though he forgot about the travesty he was involved in, and he could teleport to a brand new world. He continued to fly through the pages as he sat on the floor and leaned on his bed. Page by page, the outdoors got darker and darker. He turned the light on and read more pages. Chapter 3. Kaysen realized he needed to move out. This was probably the last thing that his parents were expecting.
What do you mean you're going to move out, son? Look, I know you made a mistake, but we'll get through this. We aren't kicking you out of the house. We want you to be okay,
said his father. Kaysen wasn't having it. It had been 4 months since the DUI. At this point, he accepted what had happened. There wasn't much he could do. Within the past 4 months, Kaysen realized that he had been living life too safe. When he looked at the mirror, he even saw a safe look. No wow factor or anything. Short hair, nothing too noticeable. Average collared shirt, nothing too noticeable. And average Levi pants. Nothing too noticeable. From his internal world to external world, everything was predictable and routine. This recent terror shook up his internal world, and there was a bitter attitude he was operating with. Even though he didn't blame his parents or his brother, Kaysen wanted a change of scene from them. He needed to move out of Virginia. Everyone in this town knew each other. Massive houses. It was reported that the side of Virginia he was in was one of the richest parts in all of the U.S. That's what repulsed Kaysen even more about the situation. He felt like his brother and his parents put their dues to earn such an amazing lifestyle. But Kaysen didn't do anything to deserve what he had. I know, Dad. I want to say thank you so much for not kicking me while I'm down. Kaysen had been crying a lot. It wasn't too much about the DUI Dummies show anymore. It was a blend of two things. One, how quickly his so-called friends turned on him. Two, and how his parents and his brother never wavered in their loyalty. One led to two being even more emotional for Kaysen. He really felt like he had the best family in the world, and he felt like he didn't deserve it, especially knowing how they had been suffering because of his mistake. How long they would suffer, he had no clue. All he knew was that he needed a change of scenery.
Well, where are you going to live?
I don't know, Dad.
Then?
Well, Dad, I want to travel first.
Travel where?
I don't know, Dad.
Kaysen, look, I know what's happening. You made a mistake and want things to change. Bad. That's okay. But making rash decisions without any plans was never your thing. What you need to do now is get a job and start putting your life back together, not randomly traveling.
I know, Dad. You're right. The thing is, I'm not going to be a good hire for any company at the moment. I just need things to die down just a little. More importantly, I need to find myself.
What do you mean, Kaysen?
I need to find myself, Dad. I realized after this whole ordeal that I'm not really a person. I'm just a collection of random ideas that I adopted to make other people happy. I have no fashion sense, no unique thoughts, no identity. All I do is live in a way to make others happy. I'm not really anyone, Dad.
You're a great son and a great brother. Think like that. Don't focus so much on what is missing.
Dad, I know what you're saying, but I need you to also know what I'm saying. You're that guy.
What do you mean?
I mean, you're Enzo Enclosed. There's a brand presence to your name, Dad. When others think of you, they think something. They think class, a winner, and a person who's articulate. When they think Kaysen, they think nothing.
Well, son, I got like this because I dedicated years to reading, studying, and working my way up. If you planted your feet in the ground, then you can make some sort of splash in accounting as well.
Ugh. Accounting. That phrase repulsed Kaysen. That's something else that Kaysen did to be a people pleaser. His teacher asked him what he wanted to be growing up, and he said he didn't know. So his teacher said,
"You look like you'll become an accountant one day."
Just like that, Kaysen took those words as law. He never even questioned the teacher. Just like a dummy, he said, I guess I'll be an accountant. Then he organized his entire life around that one ideal. That ideal was never his. He liked accounting, but it was far from something he loved. Every day felt the same: number crunching and little picture thinking. Kaysen also found out that Billy was gifted with numbers, but his fit with numbers was much different than Kaysen. Billy was gifted with numbers by understanding and building businesses. Billy looked like an average guy, but he was becoming a mogul in the making. He owned online brands that fed off one another. One brand would promote another brand, and his profits would keep multiplying. Billy learned how to play with numbers by creating value, and then seeing how to increase his revenue and cut his costs. 2 simple steps: increase revenue and cut costs. What an elegant way to understand accounting and the numbers that Kaysen worked with. That level of simplicity only made Kaysen feel small. He felt big when he was number crunching, memorizing all these random formulas and laws. Now, he was finally understanding the big picture view of what the hell he was routinely working on. Just like Kaysen hated the television since the DUI Dummies show, he hated accounting because it reminded him of what a people pleaser he was. No, Dad, I need to do something bigger. I need to travel and discover myself. Enzo looked at his son with suspicion. He observed Kaysen, the good boy who never got in trouble, suddenly getting into a whirlwind of trouble. Sure, he could try to stop his son from traveling, but then he would only be repeating the same mistake his dad made. Enzo's dad never wanted him to become a lawyer. He thought that was a disgraceful job that did society a lot of harm. He wanted Enzo to either be a doctor or an engineer. Those were safe jobs that wouldn't involve being a disgrace. But Enzo decided that law was what he wanted to do. He had a knack for breaking apart criminal cases and articulating himself with charm and conviction. When his father found out that he was going to pursue law, his father didn't talk to him for 15 years. His father didn't even come to his son's wedding. The Cold War finally ended when Enzo's father was going to pass away from lung cancer. He apologized to Enzo for how he treated him and wanted Enzo to be a better father to Kaysen and Billy. Enzo already knew that he was going to support Kaysen.
All right, son. Do you need money?
I do.
How much?
How much can you give me?
How much do you need?
$5,000?
Okay, I'll write you a check. Let's go. Your mom's done with dinner.
Chapter 4. Kaysen had an idea where he was going to go. He was going to Mexico, Cozumel to be exact. He had no clue why he wanted to go to Cozumel, and that was a part of Mexico he had never heard of before. He was going through different cruise sites for inspiration. Common places that tourists often go on cruises for are Jamaica, Bahamas, and Cozumel. Bahamas. That didn't sound bad. Did they have TV in Bahamas? Even though Kaysen wasn't saying it out loud, he wanted to go to a place where they wouldn't recognize him. Seeing multiple people whisper and lower their voice when they walked past him had been traumatizing. Kaysen walked downstairs and heard heels walking. That's his mom. He walks towards his mom with his book. Hey Mom, what's up? Where Enzo's dad had done a good job trying to hide his worries, Mom was the opposite. She was visibly worried about Kaysen and would often express it. Hi son, you okay? How are you feeling? You must feel awful, right? Yeah, I'm not feeling too good. Just taking it one day at a time. Your dad says that you're planning on moving out and doing some traveling? Yeah, Mom, I am. You sure that's a good idea right now? Don't you think it would be better to stay here and get your life sorted out? I don't think you understand what a big deal this is, Kaysen. Not a great time to just get up and leave all your problems behind. Kaysen felt a gut punch in his stomach. He knew that's exactly what it looked like. It seemed like he was just running away. But it was more than that. He really wasn't running away. Something in his gut told him that he needed to leave. Kaysen didn't feel like he could talk to his mom about this. Where his father had a lot of tension with his dad before, Kaysen wasn't aware of any problems his mom faced. She probably did face some problems, but she was rarely vocal about it. When Kaysen would ask about her life growing up, she'd only talk about the good parts. When Kaysen would ask about her day nowadays, she'd do the same thing and just talk about the good days. The last person who was going to understand a trip like this would be his mom. Or at least, that's what he thought. I know what it looks like, Mom, that I'm running away. But it's not like that. It's just that I haven't figured out who I am. I just need some time. I'm not like you where I always had things figured out. What makes you think that I always had things figured out, Kason? Didn't you? No. No one ever has everything figured out. Every person out there is a work in progress. They're learning and doing the best they can, you hear? Yes, I hear, but what do you mean you didn't have it figured out? I mean, you did very well for yourself. Wasn't it always like that? No, son. I didn't know much growing up about the fashion industry. I was actually a tomboy, would act like my brothers. It was your grandma who scolded me and would often try to get me to hang out with her friends. Your grandma was very ladylike. She was the one who was always wearing dresses. The last two words were important. Wearing dresses. That was the name of Michelle's company. Her brand appealed to the exact opposite of tomboys. It was meant for feminine women, or women who were trying to reconnect with their femininity. As of late, a lot of the media was anti-femininity. With the rise of female liberation, the whole idea of wearing dresses, being a housewife, or anything traditional was seen as outdated and oppressive to women. When Kason's mom first started her business, she was met with a flurry of backlash. Local news organizations thought she wasn't progressive enough and was trying to set the culture back. However, she still pushed on. She continued to create new designs for her dresses and expanded from there. She went from dresses to makeup and from makeup to perfume. Slowly, she was blossoming her empire one design at a time. Soon, the media backlash turned into favorable coverage. They viewed Kason's mom as a modern-day Martha Stewart. She was one of the few people who was doing what she was doing. Where a lot of other women's fashion brands were going out of their way to create pants and more boyish clothing, his mom was embracing femininity. That's why it came as a shock when he learned that his mom never liked dresses in the first place. Wait, Grandma made you wear dresses? You're the founder of wearing dresses. What do you mean she made you? Kason's mom smirked. She made me, son. Initially, I hated the idea of socializing with all her friends. All they did was gossip and talk bad about people. But after a few meetings, I started to see the appeal. Something about the dresses resonated with me. It served as a symbol. A symbol for what? It was a symbol for being yourself and embracing femininity. I don't sell objects. I sell a feeling. You never know what each experience will lead to. I know right now you're going through dark clouds. But just keep pushing yourself. This type of encouraging words was not the type of words his mom would normally say. Normally, she was the first person to be negative and worry. I see what you're saying, Mom. That's why I need to take this trip. It's something I really need to do. Does that make sense? She was silent for a while. Then she smiled. Yes, son. It makes sense. Good luck. Chapter 5. Kason changed his mind. Cozumel would have to wait. Bahamas would be the next destination. He had been doing some research on which place he should take his trip to, and the white sand and crystal clear water of the Bahamas beaches was what sold him. Yep, it was going to be Bahamas. Since the DUI dummies incident, Kason's introverted nature had turned him even more introverted. He still replayed how he was fired out of the Blue Moon. His manager called him into the office.
Hey, Kason, how are you doing?
The manager's name was Samuel, a heavy Latin man that didn't have a shred of muscle. Kason responded by saying, good. Samuel wasted no time getting to the point.
Look, Kason, I'm sure you know why I'm calling you here. There are certain things we cannot tolerate in this company. The whole ordeal of drunk driving goes against our company's principles. I'm sorry to say this, but your job is terminated.
Kason was let go. What kind of BS was this? His entire life, he was sold on the dream of job security. And just like that, he was fired? Not too secure now. Kaysen knew himself well enough to know that he didn't have the stomach for entrepreneurship. The idea of not having a safe paycheck coming in for a couple of months to a couple of years terrified him. He gave his brother and mom major props for investing 5+ years into their respective businesses before they were able to consistently get paid. But Kaysen knew that lifestyle was not for him. If it wasn't for him, then what the hell was for him? He didn't like accounting. Wasn't much of a technical guy. Hated blood, so medicine was clearly out of the question. All he enjoyed lately was reading. But what was he going to do, become a writer? Huh. He looked at the pile of books he had gone through in the past few months. He marveled at how these writers were such rich storytellers. The stories were so rich that he often felt like he knew the characters. They were his friends. Of course, Kaysen would never be able to write something like that. A writer had to go to school for writing. That was the only way. Wait a minute. What does that even mean? Kaysen never heard of a bachelor's degree in becoming an author. How were these authors born in the first place? Kaysen loved reading, but the idea of becoming a writer whose writings would be read by others was a pipe dream. A guy could dream, nevertheless. This trip to Bahamas would be something that would help spark some inspiration in him. Hopefully. Chapter 6. Kaysen booked the trip. He was set to leave in 2 days. Leading up to his trip, his parents and brother all sat at the table to have dinner. Enzo broke the silence.
Any idea how long you're going to be gone for, son?
Not sure yet, Dad. It was clear that Kaysen's mom wasn't sold on this plan, even though she had seemed encouraging. When she found out that Kaysen booked a one-way trip, her worried face began to look even more worried. Billy was supportive and gave Kaysen one piece of advice, which would end up serving as a battle cry for Kaysen. The advice was simple, 3 words to be exact. Take strategic risks. Billy even took it a few levels further. When you try to avoid risks, that's the riskiest thing to do. Billy went on to tell Kaysen about a few lessons he learned since running a business. One of the lessons was that either you innovate or die. There's no such thing as maintaining for too long in business. Innovation is born from experimenting, failing, and taking risks. That's one of the reasons that Billy ended up becoming so successful at such an early age. Initially, it wasn't like that. He was failing and trying to be safe. When he would make a couple of dollars, he would keep trying to save that so he could rest on his laurels. But when he began taking strategic risks, that's when he felt fearless and fearful at the same time. Within that polarity is when his business started to take off. The advice resonated with Kaysen. There was the quote he once heard which said that, "When you run away from problems, problems find you." Since he had been playing it safe his entire life, problems were bubbling in the back end. It's like we were put on this planet to get into problems and solve them. The type of problems that we willingly chose to solve would determine our success rates. No running away. After dinner, Kaysen went back to his room to read some more. That's when Enzo came in.
Got a minute, son?
Yes, Dad, what's up? Enzo sat down.
Just wanted to make sure you weren't going to do anything drastic in Bahamas.
1 second, one family member is telling him to take risks, and the other family member is asking him not to do anything drastic? What do you mean, Dad?
I just want to make sure you don't do anything to harm yourself, like drugs, too much alcohol, or worse.
Oh, no, Dad, it really isn't like that. I'm mainly doing this trip to see who I really am. I'm not going there to be a degenerate or anything. To be honest, I don't know if I'll ever touch alcohol again. One of the rare few times I do it, I find myself on TV. Both father and son laugh.
Okay, son. If you're not going to do drugs, then that makes me feel good. Mind if I give you some advice?
Yeah, Dad, what's up?
Take strategic risks.
What the heck? Billy had just told him that. Were Billy and Dad talking? Were you talking to Billy about telling me that? No, why? Because Billy literally told me to take strategic risks too. Enzo looked puzzled and began laughing at the coincidence, then continued. No, I didn't talk to Billy about giving you that advice. I guess it's just something you needed to hear. Look, son, you said you want to find yourself, right? Kaysen nodded his head. Well, I want you to look around this world. It's just ideas everywhere, ideas which we take as reality. The streetlights, ideas. What is and what is not illegal, ideas. The money I'm holding, ideas. Kaysen continued to listen. These ideas are other people's ideas that we are all in agreement on. And if you're agreeing too much, then you're just going to be a sum of someone else's ideas. That's why I'm telling you to take some strategic risks while you're there, son. I gave you $5,000. I hope you aren't living in Bahamas the same exact way you're leaving here. What risks have you taken, Dad? Marrying your mom was one of them. I'm not going to lie, but I didn't want a career woman. I wanted a woman who was going to stay home and take care of the kids while I rose in my career. When I saw that your mom was just as serious about her career as I was about mine, it got me a little nervous. Why? I don't know. I think it's because my dad and mom had a traditional relationship, and I just adopted the idea. The minute that it was being challenged, I didn't know what to do next. So, what did you do? At first, I got scared. I told your mom that I would have to leave her if she didn't push her career to the side. Your mom did not agree to my demands, however, she still wanted to make it work. Enzo paused to see if Kaysen wasn't bored. He wasn't. Enzo continued. I had a bunch of friends who told me to break up with your mom. They had bad experiences with career women, and they would tell me to get out while I still could. My father and friends said that career women weren't worth it. But I had to listen to my gut. I took a strategic risk. I weighed all the experience I had with your mom, her actions, and realized that it was a risk worth taking. If it didn't work out, then it didn't work out, but if it did work out, then I would be grateful. What did you learn? I learned that not all advice is good advice, because others are giving advice from their point of view. What works for one person may not work for another person. If I listened to my dad and my friends, then I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now. See, that's where Billy and you have always been different. How have we been different? Billy was the troublemaker growing up. I used to worry about him a lot, thought he was going to go to jail or do something reckless. But he was a troublemaker in the school standards. What I realized later as a parent was that Billy wasn't the problem. It was the school system's problem. Actually, both were in the wrong. It's just that Billy didn't have the personality type to be sitting in class. That's where you were different. Kaysen began to think about their childhood. Billy would get suspended, get into fights, and stack up referrals like Pokemon cards. While Kaysen was often loved by the teachers. Better yet, he was ignored by the teachers. They'd often forget his name because he was so much of a background type of guy. Kaysen, your mom and I liked what a good boy you were growing up. You still are a good boy, but we felt like we robbed you of that fearlessness at an early age. That fearlessness is a muscle, son. A part of me feels like I'm to blame for your identity crisis right now. No, Dad, you're not to blame at all. You've been great through this entire process. I feel so bad about how I let you down. I'm going on this trip not to show what bad parents you were, but because of what a bad son I was. I want to change that. Enzo smiled, hearing the positive acknowledgement. I see what you're saying, son. Just realize that taking risks is not a bad thing in life. It's a part of life. Those who refuse to take risks adopt other people's ideas and call them their own. Then one day they wonder why they feel empty. I don't want you to feel empty. Do you enjoy what you do for a living, Dad? Yes, son. It's my life. I don't work, I perform my calling every day. Think like that. Calling. I mean, it's just words. What's the big deal? A job is something you have to do. A calling is something that you're called to do. It's a night and day difference. Growing up, I used to watch a lot of movies and clips on law. I was highly curious about the criminal justice system. I also wanted to know how logic, words, and evidence could be used to sway someone's life for the best or the worst. I loved everything about law. Your calling is often a thing that you consume the most. What do you mean? Look at your mom, for example. She was obsessed with dresses as long as I can remember. She'd be able to dissect the material, the dress size, whether the supplier was competent or not. She would routinely consume dress magazines, dress videos, and all sorts of fashion content. That's why what she does comes easy to her. That's really interesting. Look at Billy. When I'd walk around with him in the streets growing up, he'd explain why certain businesses worked and why some didn't. At the age of 7, he was reverse engineering pizza places, business plans, product development, and all of that. What do you like to consume? As of late, Dad, I've been reading a lot more. Why? I have no clue. Well, I think I sort of have a clue. It was because I'm somewhat scared with the TV. I don't know if I can watch one of those for some time. Are you reading because you despise the TV, or are you reading because you actually love reading? A little bit of both. As of late, I've been loving books. It's the only thing that makes me forget about this nightmare. What do you read? I read self-improvement books, autobiographies, and fiction. Fiction, huh? Yeah, I've been reading fiction and... Dad, I think I know what you're talking about with the calling thing. I wouldn't say I'm going to be a writer or anything, but something about writing captivates me. It's like I can create this alternate universe for the reader to temporarily enter. Kaysen had more things to say, but he was getting a bit emotional. He continued nevertheless. These past months have been hell, Dad. I walk down the streets and others are talking about me. I hear this internet thing is only going to get more advanced in the years. Soon, more people are going to consume more stuff from the internet than the TV. I'm sure my episode of DUI Dummies is going to be on that YouTube thingy. I'm sure people are going to see me at the lowest point of my life and think that's who I am. Enzo was about to interrupt, but he decided not to. So Kaysen continued. These books, Dad, it allows me to enter a different universe and feel good again. Do you know what I mean? I've never been much of a fiction reader, but I get your point. Something about writing has been captivating me as of late. I wish I could put it into words. Some of these authors are really good. They write in a way where it's so simple to understand. Anyways, I'm just talking out loud. I don't know what I'm going to do with writing. Just you bringing up finding a calling and talking about looking into what I consume the most has got me thinking, you know? I know, son. I know. Just keep brainstorming. Experiment more. I know this Bahamas trip is going to help you out more than you can imagine. Thanks, Dad. Chapter 7. Getting to the Bahamas was a pretty chilling experience for Kaysen. This was probably one of the riskiest things he ever did. Well, besides getting behind the wheel while he was drunk. Now he was in Bahamas, with little clue what to do next. He had money so he could get a hotel. Well, how long was he going to stay? Should he get an apartment instead? No, start off with a hotel and then see if an apartment would be better. He called the taxi driver and asked the driver to take him to a nearby hotel. The driver dropped him off in a dingy motel that didn't look safe to visit. Oh well, he decided to go there anyway. Kaysen got his one suitcase and backpack and was greeted by a tan woman with a pretty face. Hello there, sir. How are you? I'm doing well, miss. Can I get one room, please? Sure. For how long? Can it be undetermined? I'm going to need a date to enter into the system, sir. Let's say 1 week. Kaysen had a feeling it was going to be longer than 1 week. The lady got him acclimated. He was wearing a cap and glasses to hide his face just in case she recognized him from the show. He desperately hoped that she didn't break the silence with, Hey, aren't you the guy from... He lost track of how many times he was asked that question since the premiere of the show. It was embarrassing because anytime he had an interaction with someone new, in the back of his mind he was carrying himself like he was about to be asked the question. Luckily, she didn't ask him anything like that. She nevertheless had some questions for Kaysen. "What's your story, mister?" "Huh? Like, what's your story?" Kaysen didn't know what the hell she was asking. Was this her subvert way of asking about his television appearance? Since she didn't blatantly ask the question, he'd just answer in an equally vague way. "I'm just trying to find myself, you know?" She looked back at him. Her face was very small, with big lips and long hair. She was cute. The way her face was structured, she seemed like someone who did a lot of probing. "I see what you're saying." She looked at his driver's license. "Kaysen?" Kaysen nodded and got his motel keys. As he was walking to his room, he became angry. He thought, "Damn it, you idiot. She was trying to create conversation with you. You should have said something to keep the conversation going. You're supposed to take some risks in this trip, dummy." He angrily walked into the room. Nothing special. Tiny room, tiny bed, and no TV. Thank God for the no TV part. His motel room was on the second floor. Once he opened the window, he saw an amazing view of the beach. Great. A nice beach, he thought. Time to walk around and take some strategic risks. Chapter 8. Kaysen walked around the area. He saw different locals talking to one another. He walked some more. Then he saw tourists. He walked some more. Now he had locals coming to sell him something like he was a tourist. Didn't they know that he was going to be one of the locals too?
"Sir, may I interest you in this?"
A tiny shriveled-up woman comes to him holding a blank tank top with Bob Marley's face on it. Kaysen looked back at the tank top. It did look nice. How much?
$20,
said the woman. $20? Kaysen thought. The shirt was nice. But $20? He was hesitant to buy any clothes that weren't on a deal. His shirts were often in the $12.99 mark. Anything more than that was inspected thoroughly. As his analytical mind began creeping up while he was feeling on the shirt, that's when he heard his brother and father's words. Take strategic risks. He thought, well, what the hell does strategic mean in the first place? Does me buying this Bob Marley shirt count as strategic or not? He began thinking and thinking some more. Clearly his face must have looked strange, since he was thinking so much that the shriveled woman broke the silence.
"You're a skinny boy. You need to eat more."
Wow, what a great saleswoman. Yeah, this is my first day here. Do you have any idea where I should eat? That's when the shriveled woman looks at him in shock. Suddenly, her motherly instincts took over.
"Wait, you haven't eaten yet? It's almost dark."
No, miss, I haven't eaten yet.
"Okay, young man, I'll make you a deal. If you buy this Bob Marley shirt, then I'll make you food. It's a one-time offer that will expire in 40 seconds.
Suddenly, Kaysen felt pressure. He began to have a flurry of questions. When the hell am I ever going to wear this Bob Marley shirt? Who the hell is this lady? And what if she's trying to poison me? What if her food sucks? As time was winding down, she begins counting down.
10, 9, 8,
Think, Kaysen, think.
7, 6, 5, 4.
Kaysen made up his mind. Okay, deal. The shriveled-up woman gave him the shirt for the money and began walking Kaysen back to a certain location. He had no clue where she was taking him. What if she was setting him up so she could get the Bob Marley shirt back? Even though he was uncertain, he felt good right now. Billy and his dad told him to take strategic risks. And when he thought about it, he felt like buying the shirt was his first strategic risk. Something about risks always terrified Kaysen. One of the earlier times he recalled taking a risk and it backfiring was when he snitched on a classmate. He was in music class as a kid. There was a teacher who saw one of her flutes was stolen. She said the entire class would get an F on the project if none of the students said who took the item. All the kids in the class knew who took it. It was a kid named James, who was notorious for stealing things and fighting others. The other kids didn't say a word. Jason thought it was worth the risk to snitch on James. He was sure he would get on the teacher's good side and win the approval of his classmates. Once he told on James, he felt a strong slap on the back of his head. He turned around, and it was James ferociously looking at him. The other classmates also disapprovingly looked at him. They couldn't believe that he snitched on James so quickly. After that, not only did he lose a bunch of friends, he also lost the stomach to take risks. That was such a subtle memory. It happened when he was 7-ish. But they often say that a significant part of childhood determines adulthood. That memory from 7 years old may have been forgotten by the conscious mind, but it sure as hell wasn't forgotten by the subconscious mind. How much longer do we have, miss? He looked at the tiny woman as she was walking with purpose. Something about someone her age walking with such a strong stride seemed abnormal.
We're almost there. What's your name?
My name is Kaysen. Yours?
They call me Auntie.
Who calls you Auntie? What's your real name? The shriveled woman looks back at Kaysen.
I prefer you call me Auntie.
Kaysen thought, Auntie? Why would he call a random woman he just met Auntie? That didn't make any sense. Oh well, she was going to be feeding him, so he wasn't going to ask any questions. Finally, the lady begins heading into a neighborhood where all the houses were different colors. Pink, purple, yellow. Even though the houses looked raggedy, the different colors made them pop. She pulls up to the pink house and opens the door. The lights are on. Kaysen could hear a buzzing of voices and the smell was amazing. He didn't know what the smell was. All he knew was that it was food. His stomach was growling and his mouth was getting dry.
Take your shoes off, young man. I'll introduce you to everyone.
As he begins taking his shoes off, he hears a loud, Auntie! 2 little girls come rushing towards her.
Hi there, my 2 little angels.
The 2 girls hug Auntie and look at Kaysen with curiosity. Auntie quickly introduces both parties.
Hello, Kaysen. This is Reen and Shiv. Reen and Shiv, this is Kaysen.
The 2 girls lunge towards him and give him a hug. Surprised, Kaysen begins laughing, and they begin hugging him tighter. Nice to meet you 2 girls. Auntie looks at Kaysen and says,
Let me introduce you to the others.
That's when the strong food smell gets even stronger. He walks into a kitchen that has at least 12 people. How the hell are all these people fitting in this tiny house? They all yell out, Auntie, we've been waiting for you. Then they see Kaysen sneaking up behind her. A few people look suspiciously, while the others realized it must be Auntie being social.
Hey, everyone. I have a guest who will be joining us for dinner. Everyone, say hello to Kaysen.
Hi, Kaysen, everyone said in unison. Kaysen got nervous. He wasn't used to seeing all these eyeballs looking at him. Hi, he said without a semblance of charm. Auntie pulled up an extra plate and a chair for Kaysen to sit down. A few of the people went back to talking about what they were talking about before, while a few other members began talking to Kaysen. One elderly man who looked roughly around the same age as Auntie was one of the first people to break the ice with Kaysen.
So, what brought you to Bahamas of all places?
Soon as the elderly man spoke, everyone else quieted down. Now the table was looking at Kaysen. While the table was looking at Kaysen, Auntie was assembling Kaysen's turkey, mashed potatoes, corn, and extra meatloaf. I saw a lot of the beaches and I had to come. The table began laughing. The 2 girls who initially greeted Kaysen were like,
You love the beaches.
The old man smiled and continued to probe.
You only came here for the beaches? No, I can tell you didn't come for vacation. Why did you really come? Running away from something?
He asked. When he asked that, Kaysen suddenly got nervous. Oh no. Does he know about the TV show? Kaysen didn't want to be weird, so he quickly said, No, sir, I'm not running away. Actually, I'm trying to find myself. This was a compelling answer that the table wasn't expecting. There was another boy who was roughly around Kaysen's age who asked, That's interesting. So this is like a spiritual trip, huh? I would say so, even though I'm not too much of a spiritual guy. For me, I just have been feeling lost as of late. I don't know who I am. I thought it would be best if I took some time away from life and be alone to discover who I am. That's when the old man smirked, gathered his thoughts, and said,
You don't find yourself away from life. You find yourself while getting your ass kicked by life.
Auntie looked at the old man and angrily said,
Hey, we don't use bad words.
The old man smiled. What do you mean, sir? Kaysen asked.
People often come to Bahamas as a tourist. They have a lot of stress in their 40-hour-a-week jobs, relationships, and life in general. So they come here to escape and relax, which they do. The only problem is that when they go back to where they came from, they just go back to feeling stressed again.
Auntie gave Kaysen his plate.
I believe you are smart. What's your name?
Kaysen. Yours?
You can call me Uncle.
Uncle? Now Kaysen was becoming confused. One person goes by Auntie and the other person goes by Uncle. Was this some kind of tradition in Bahamas, or were these two people pulling his leg?
Look, Kaysen, you have a great opportunity. People who come to Bahamas need to experience this place the right way. You hang with this family and we'll teach you to experience it the right way. We can challenge you and kick your ass some more.
Once again, Auntie got angry.
Hey, stop using that word.
Uncle smiled. Kaysen had no clue what he meant. What do you do, Uncle? Kaysen asked. That's when the bunch of people in the table looked around, stunned, as if the question was insulting. The guy who was Kaysen's age said, Uncle is a celebrity in this house. The reason we always have food on the table is because of him. Kaysen looked at Uncle with curiosity. Uncle pulled out a pen from his right front pocket.
This has made me a lot of money,
Uncle said as he waved the pen in front of Kaysen. A pen, sir?
Oh, oops, I forgot the other part. A paper. But yes, the pen has made me a lot of money.
One of the little girls interrupted.
Our uncle is a good writer. A lot of people from America come to get training from him. He's a writer of so many books.
Wait, he's a writer? Kaysen had his first question. Uncle, which school did you go to learn writing? Is the school here? The table burst out laughing. Auntie said, School! The table began laughing at Kaysen's suggestion that Uncle learned how to write in school. Uncle responded,
School doesn't teach you how to write. Life teaches you how to write. If you want, I can teach you how to write.
Teach me? You'll do that?
Yeah, if you let me kick your ass some more.
Hey! Auntie screamed again. Kaysen was confused. Sir?
Great writers are born from pain. Are you okay with welcoming pain?
I guess.
Okay, then you'll become a great writer. Writing skills are born from not only welcoming pain, but organizing it into knowledge, and then communicating the knowledge.
One of the members from the table said,
Uncle is one of the famous writers in the Bahamas. He makes it easy to learn. Others get bogged down with too much little details.
Uncle continued,
Anyways, I want you and Ivan to start shadowing me. This old man needs something fun to do.
Ivan?
That's me.
Kaysen looked at the other kid who was roughly around his age. Kaysen didn't know why, but he began feeling excited. First day in Bahamas and he was already getting acclimated with the area. He had his Bob Marley shirt, met a few people, and now got his writing mentor. What could possibly make his first day even better? This was going to be the beginning of a new chapter. He desperately hoped that these fine people were not made aware of his appearance on the television show. Everything was going so well, too. Chapter 9. Kaysen spent the night chatting with the people in the house and exchanging stories. A lot of them were curious what the U.S. was like. Not like Bahamas was too far from the U.S., but the people in the house were locals who never left Bahamas. Kaysen described the good parts of the U.S. along with the bad sides, and they listened to his words with curiosity. He was surprised how easy it was sharing these stories. For the most part, he was normally a bad storyteller. However, this group made him feel comfortable. It's like they were just waiting to hear his words with enthusiasm. As Auntie prepared dessert, Kaysen found himself being more animated than usual. He was using wide hand gestures, changing his tonality, and moving his body around. There were a few times he told jokes that had the entire audience laughing. Anytime he'd get done telling his stories, Uncle would look at him and say,
"You're going to make a great writer. Great speakers become great writers."
Kaysen looked at him confused. Great speaker? Who the hell was this old man talking to? Hearing that little bit of encouragement did a lot for his confidence. Normally, he was reserved and to himself. However, since being in Bahamas, he was already starting to feel like a brand new person. Maybe the strategic risk concept wasn't so bad after all. He had to find a job while he was at Bahamas. Why not ask someone here? By the way, folks, I have a favor to ask. The room hushes.
What is it?
Auntie asks. I need a job. Do you know anyone who's hiring? The room began chatting. There was a woman who was roughly in her mid-40s who said, I could use some help. Ivan got up and said, That's my mom. She owns one of the best sandwich shops in the entire Bahamas. The woman looked at him funny. One of the best sandwich shops? It is the best sandwich shop. Since Ivan is too lazy to help me, why don't you help me? I'll pay you every week. Sandwich shop. Kaysen was an accountant not too long ago. Wouldn't making sandwiches for a living out of nowhere seem like a downgrade? Wait, who was he kidding? His life as of late had been a downgrade. He had no room to be picky. I would love to make sandwiches with you. When can I begin? How about tomorrow? Uncle was observing Kaysen as he was accepting the job role. That's when he looks at Ivan and says,
"Ivan, I want you to work in the sandwich shop with Kaysen as well."
What? Why? Ivan asked, surprised.
"Because since I am going to be teaching you two writing, I want you two to get familiar with each other. People often learn faster when they talk to others about what they learned. I think it would help if you guys can bounce ideas off one another."
Okay, sure. Ivan was happy as well. Before, he hated working at the sandwich shop because his mom was a micromanager, and he had no one else to talk to. But if this new funny kid named Kaysen was going to be working with him, then it would be easier to kill time. Ivan had a dream of being a great writer like his uncle. The way that his uncle was able to turn complex topics into poetry captivated him. He also had dreams of working on his own schedule. Ivan loved his mom, but the idea of working at a sandwich shop forever didn't appeal to him at all. If he was able to become a better writer and build an audience along the way, then it would be a great opportunity to level up towards his dreams. Kaysen looked at Ivan. Ivan looked at Kaysen. They knew within the next couple of days, weeks, or months, they'd be getting to know each other very well. Chapter 10. You're coming back late. Kaysen looked back as the cute hostess greeted him. He looked at the clock, and it showed 12 a.m. Kaysen looked back at the hostess and saw her name, Brooke, on the name tag. He said, Yes, let's just say I met an interesting group of people. You're working late. Well, I'm working late because tonight is my last night. Kaysen was taken aback. Last night? He was hoping to have some more interactions with this attractive hostess. Wait, really? Where are you moving? Oh, I'm not moving. I just got a different job. My mom needs some help in her hotel and asked if I'd be willing to help. You love the hotel and motel business, huh? Kaysen asked with a smirk. That's what it must look like. Not really. I actually always wanted to be an actress, but times are tough and it seems like I'm always getting caught up in different jobs to make ends meet, you know? She asked him a question back. That meant she wanted the conversation to go on. Strategic risks. Those two words came ringing in Kaysen's mind again. He was wondering if he should ask her on a date. You know what? Fuck it. You seem very interesting. I'd love to get to know you more. Any chance you'd want to go on a date sometime? Brooke's smile turned into a frown.
I'm so sorry, but I'm in a relationship.
Then she pointed at a picture behind her, where she was being held by a tall, handsome guy. Embarrassed, Kaysen looked for a quick way to rebound. Oh, yeah, but who couldn't use two boyfriends? Just kidding. She pulled out a piece of paper and began writing something down.
Here, this is my number if you ever need me. I know you're new to Bahamas, but I've been here my entire life. Text me or call me if you ever have any questions.
This was still a win in Kaysen's mind. Even though he didn't get the date, he at least got her number. Knowing how clumsy he could get with his phone, he decided to get a piece of paper and write down his number, too. For sure, Brooke. I wish you the best in your new job. If you ever need me, this is my number. Don't hesitate to reach out. He said the last sentence with a lot of force, as if reinforcing. Seriously, do not hesitate. They both waved each other goodbye, and he began walking to his room. As he lied down, he felt a thrill. This was a thrill that he hadn't felt in ages. Billy and Dad were right. This strategic risks thing was way better than he was initially expecting. Kaysen was saddened that it took him so long to figure this out. I'm going to be taking a lot more risks while I'm here. I'll be a changed person once I leave Bahamas. That's a promise. Chapter 11.
Listen, Kaysen, you're not just a sandwich maker. You are a sandwich artist. Say it with me. I am a sandwich artist.
I am a sandwich artist. This was Kaysen's first day on the job, and he was already feeling a little doubtful. Ivan said his mom was a micromanager, but he wasn't expecting it to be so intense from the get-go. Kaysen was only 2 minutes late on his first day, and he got an earful from his manager. She also expected Kaysen to call her ma'am. The job didn't feel too bad. He liked the idea of creating sandwiches from chaos. He'd make subs, pitas, and even salads. One of the most gratifying feelings was when he made his first sub and the customer gave him a tip. Not only did she give him a tip, she came back when she was done with the meal and said,
"That was the best sandwich I've had in a long time. Bravo."
Kaysen liked hearing that. He had been a consumer for so long that he didn't know what it was like to be a creator. There was a different feeling in knowing that he was responsible for making this lady's day better. The shop would get busy in spurts. Sometimes it would get so busy that he was working incessantly. He liked it when it was busy because that's when the day would fly right by. When it was empty, that's when it took a long time for the day to fly by. When it was empty, he and Ivan would stock the supplies. They'd fill up the pickles, jalapenos, meats, and cheeses. Not only would they fill up the food trays, they would talk as well.
Seriously though, Kaysen, why are you here?
What do you mean?
I mean, you seem like a normal guy. What makes a normal guy wake up one morning and say that he's going to be living in the Bahamas? Are you mad at your parents or something?
No. Actually, dude, I have the two best parents out there. My dad is a renowned lawyer, and my mom runs a successful business. Then, why can't you believe that I just came here to explore the Bahamas?
Listen, Kaysen, Uncle wants us to get close because we're going to be seeing each other a lot for the next couple of weeks.
Seriously, what happened? What are you running away from? Okay, Ivan, I'll tell you. Kaysen was going to tell Ivan something, but he definitely wasn't going to tell him the entire story. There was no chance he was going to be jeopardizing what he was beginning to have here. Okay, look, Ivan. I've always been this shadow everywhere I went. I didn't have much of an identity in the U.S. I worked an average job, dressed like an average guy, and didn't have many opinions that were my own. Ivan listened. So I wanted to change that. I'm 25 years old and still have no clue who I really am. The one reason why is because I don't take any risks. My older brother told me that, as did my dad. So I thought it would be risky coming to Bahamas where I didn't know anyone and start something here. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, but I'm sure I'll find something. Ivan was silent for a second, processing what he just heard.
You know what, Kaysen?
What?
Me and you are going to be very close.
Oh yeah? Why do you say that?
It's because ever since my dad died,
Whoa, your dad died? I'm so sorry to hear about that, man. It's okay. Maybe one day you'll find out how he died. If you're open with me, then I'll be open with you. Anyways, ever since my dad died, I've been feeling off. My mom hasn't been the same. She's been having to work more. It feels like I've been getting pulled in all these different directions. My dream was to always work for myself. This sandwich making thing isn't bad, but I don't want to be here my entire life. I don't even know if I want to be in Bahamas my whole life. I feel like I've yet to see the world. I'm only 25, too. You've been in the U.S. You've seen what it's like. We all talk about going to the U.S. and the Bahamas, but for us, that's a pipe dream. I want to become a wordsmith, so I can build an empire around me. Does that make sense? Surprisingly, Kaysen knew exactly what Ivan was talking about. Wow, how random was it that the kid who he was going to be shadowing with had been so similar in terms of their mannerisms? They both had big dreams, and both felt unsure about what to do next. And they both knew that writing was going to play some role in their future. Still, Kaysen had no clue what to expect from these writing practices. Ivan, what can we expect from Uncle? You know him and you've worked with him. What should I expect? Actually, Kaysen, he strictly told me not to say anything to you. He wanted the first meeting to be a surprise. What? Why? What happened to us being open with each other? Kaysen said in a sarcastic tone. Hey man, I'd love to, but this is the one thing that Uncle told me to not tell you about. You'll see why. Okay, I'll take your word for it. As their conversation was winding down, they both saw a heavy woman waiting at the sandwich aisle.
What's a woman gotta do to get a tuna sub around here?
You got her, Ivan. Or you want me to get her?
Hey, you're the sandwich artist,
Ivan said. Chapter 12. Kaysen came back to his hotel to get ready. His first meeting with Uncle was going to be in 2 hours. He thought it would be the perfect time to get a quick nap in, get changed, and walk over to the sandwich shop so Ivan could pick him up from there. As he entered the hotel, he saw a guy in the same spot that Brooke used to be. He felt a subtle tug on his heartstrings. He wished he had a longer time to get to know Brooke. She seemed like she could teach him some things. He lied down. Thus far, it had been a different scenario for him. He wasn't used to not being recognized in public. Thus far, he had been someone who never wanted to be a celebrity. The only reason he became a celebrity was for all the wrong reasons. He lied down on his bed, feeling somewhat hopeful about the change his life was projecting towards. He already got a new job, a mentor, and a friend in his first few days in Bahamas. If he had the same shy attitude he had back in Virginia, he doubted he'd have left the hotel. Kaysen knew that he was going to give this Bahamas thing a shot. He lied down on the bed and dozed off. As he began to doze off, he began dreaming. Better yet, he began having a nightmare. I don't know if I should take another one, guys. His coworkers weren't having it.
Come on, Kaysen, quit being a baby. Just take it.
I seriously don't know if I should. I might throw up.
Kaysen, I ordered it for the entire team. Quit being a buzzkill. Come on, guys. Tell Kaysen to quit being a baby. Kaysen, Kaysen, Kaysen.
One of the waitresses heard what was being said. She grabs Kaysen's shoulder and says,
Come on, quit being a baby. I was the one who made the picklebacks too.
Peer pressure was at an all-time high. Kaysen, who was normally seen as a recluse, was finally out with his coworkers. It was 4 other guys roughly around his age. They'd been trying to get Kaysen to come out for the longest, but Kaysen always had some elaborate excuse. This night, they were able to get Kaysen to come out because they promised Veronica was going to come too. She was one of the HR reps that Kaysen had a crush on. Everyone on the floor knew that he had a crush on her. He didn't want to take the shot because he felt that Veronica was coming soon, and he didn't want to talk to her with his speech slurring. I seriously can't, guys.
Okay. If you don't take it, then none of us are taking it either.
The others looked at him with a sad face. That's when Kaysen said, Okay, fine. Last shot, though. Kaysen was okay with letting himself down, but whenever others felt like they were let down by him, he wasn't happy. He was a people pleaser to the core. Kaysen picked up the shot, clinked it with the other shot glasses, and they all took it in unison. Yeah, said one of the drunk members. Jake, shut up, man. We're out in public. We know who's definitely not driving. At this point, Kaysen was more than tipsy. He was drunk. He asked, "By the way, when is Veronica coming?" That's when the other members began looking at each other. They were looking like, who wants to break the news? Jake, the person who just got done screaming, broke the news. Yeah, Kaysen. Veronica's not coming. We just said she was coming so you'd finally come out of the cube. What? Are you serious? Yeah. Look, the place is about to close in 15 minutes. You think Veronica's really coming? The other members began laughing. But Kaysen didn't find it funny at all. He thought, so he got this drunk for no reason? What the hell? Soon the place had closed. The other members walked out. The thought of them driving drunk didn't come up at all. They effortlessly got in their cars and drove away. Seeing how his coworkers didn't make it a big deal about driving drunk, he didn't think it was a big deal either. Sure, he heard a few times that it wasn't the smart thing to do, but what's the worst that could happen? It was only a 22-minute drive back home. Nothing bad could happen. Only something bad would happen. When he was on the highway, it was empty for the most part. Then, as he was 8 minutes away, according to the GPS, he saw cop lights from his rearview mirror. His heart sank, but he didn't quite understand the weight of the situation. The rest was history. He was pulled out of the car after slurring his words, given a DUI test. As he was doing the test, everything felt like a dream. It didn't feel like a real moment, just a hazy occurrence. As he was done, all he could remember was a guy in a suit coming out and telling him that he was going to be on TV. Still, Kaysen didn't understand the weight of the situation until the next day when he could recall the experience. When he was in the jailhouse, he found a way to cover his tracks. He told his parents that he was going to be chilling with his coworkers for some time. They believed him, like they always did. The only problem was that Kaysen knew his life was never going to be the same once he fully sobered up. Kaysen suddenly woke up from the nightmare. He was sweating. This nightmare was replaying for a few months. It's like different angles of that night were still locked in his subconscious mind, and every time he dreamt, he was given a new peek into what happened. The host of the show was in the cop car the entire time, listening in on the conversation. He was waiting for the perfect time to let Kaysen know that he was going to be on TV. As Kaysen recalled that memory, he slowly became infuriated. His life was going well. Why was it that these idiots went out of their way to ruin it? Didn't they have anything better to do? If Kaysen ever had the resources, he was going to find that smug television host and spit on his face. Then again, though, the whole ordeal was Kaysen's fault. Once Kaysen woke up, he kept dwelling on that night. He could feel his enthusiasm waning. Now he wasn't even sure if he wanted to go to the training. Then again, he had no choice. He already gave Uncle and Ivan his word. Kaysen slowed his breath down. He forcefully put a smile on his face and began getting ready. Chapter 13. You are late, Ivan said as he was staring at his watch and back at Kaysen. What is with you and your mom? I'm just 2 minutes late and you guys make it a big deal? Kaysen said in a joking way. Late is late, my friend. Let's go. Ivan got in his car with Kaysen and began driving off. The sun was setting and it was getting dark. Ivan had a pretty worried look on his face. Kaysen literally had no clue what to expect. I thought I was supposed to be learning how to write. Why the hell are we driving late at night for? I wonder if something shady is going to happen. After 40 minutes, they finally got to a dark park-like area. Ivan, where the hell are we? Ivan begins reaching in his glove compartment. Then he pulls out a blindfold. Uncle told me to tell you to put this on. What? I'm definitely not wearing that. Why would I wear a blindfold? Quit joking around and let's just get on with this already. Seriously, Kaysen. Uncle told me to put the blindfold on you. Once I lead you there, I'm supposed to put on a blindfold as well. Trust me. Trust me. These were 2 words that Kaysen wasn't taking seriously at all now. At this point, he began feeling suspicious. All the way from Auntie, to buying the Bob Marley shirt, to the dinner, to Uncle and his secretive tendencies. Who the hell were these people? And why did they invite Kaysen to the family in the first place? Was there some agenda? Kaysen looked around, and he was clearly in the middle of nowhere. If he were to die, his family would have no clue. He did hear some horror stories of Americans traveling overseas and being robbed for everything. Was that going to happen to Kaysen? No, Ivan, I'm not letting you put a damn blindfold on me. You know what? I don't know if any of this is a good idea.
Kaysen, this does not look good. I completely get your perspective. But the thing is, you just need to trust me.
Kaysen wanted to yell that he didn't trust him for this shady situation, but didn't want to be mean. Once again, Kaysen expressed his hesitancy. I don't know. You have to understand how weird this seems.
I get it. Just calm down and take the risk.
Once again, strategic risks came into Kaysen's mind. Thus far, he had done a good job of not being such a scaredy cat. If he were to die, he would die. But if he were not to die, then this could simply serve as the roller coaster that had been Bahamas thus far. All right, Ivan, do what you gotta do. They both got out of the car, and Ivan put the blindfold on him. Then he grabbed Kaysen's palm and puts it on his shoulder and guided him up the hill. All Kaysen could do was feel the wind on his face and the crunching of the sticks under his feet. He wasn't quite nervous anymore. He was more curious about what the hell was going to happen next. There was some zigzagging that was taking place, and some,
"Hey, not that way,"
from Ivan. Eventually, Ivan began slowing down. Update? Kaysen asked.
We are here.
Chapter 14. Kaysen could hear Ivan putting the blindfold on himself as well. Now what? Kaysen asked.
Now we wait,
Ivan said. For how long?
Uncle didn't say that.
So the two waited for what felt like an eternity. In the first 10 minutes, they were talking a little about what to expect. Still, Ivan was being pretty secretive. He wasn't going to say everything. Kaysen began worrying again. What if there were wolves and bears looking at him like lunch? He heard a bunch of chirping and movement around them. Was this uncle guy playing some game from behind the scenes? Eventually, they had been standing for so long that it felt like his knees were getting numb. Kaysen began sitting down.
Hey, Kaysen, are you sitting down?
Yeah, my legs are sore. I have no clue when he's going to be here. Stand up. Quick, stand up. Why? Kaysen asked as he sprang back up.
When Uncle gives orders, he expects us to follow it, Kaysen. We can't be breaking the rules at all. Just know that we're going to have to stand until Uncle comes. You aren't sitting anymore, are you?
No. Kaysen was standing, and now he was getting irritated. They had been waiting for 1 hour in this dark area with blindfolds on. What kind of BS was this? Especially from a family who was so picky with time. The head honcho can't even honor a time limit? Kaysen could only daydream as to what was going to happen. One time, Kaysen saw one of his favorite singers doing a bunch of intense workouts. The video ended with, "Everyone wants to be a singing superstar,
but only a few people want to put in the work."
That video left a strong impression on Kaysen. He wondered why this singer was working out so hard for. He's just singing, not getting ready for a boxing match. But it was clear that this singer knew something that Kaysen didn't. In future interviews, the singer said that in order to be a prolific singer, he had to be in shape. The voice doesn't just come from the mouth like a lot of newbies think. Instead, the voice comes from the entire body. When someone speaks, their entire body rings. So it was imperative to make sure the singer took care of the entire body. Did creative fields require some kind of physicality that outsiders were unaware of? Was Uncle going to physically train Ivan and him in this dark forest-like area? As he was thinking about what was going to happen, he could hear footsteps. Hey, Ivan, do you hear footsteps?
Yeah.
What if it's a bear?
I haven't heard about too many bears in Bahamas before.
But what if it's a bear? Ivan, I don't know if I like bears. The footsteps got closer.
You two be quiet.
It was Uncle's voice. Kaysen was relieved that it was Uncle and not a bear.
Both of you, take off your blindfolds.
They both took off their blindfolds. It was dark, but Uncle set up a few portable lamps to create some shine. Before they could even get adjusted and comfortable, Uncle yells out,
Say the alphabet backwards.
Both look at each other confused. Alphabet backwards? That would require writing it down, not reciting it out loud. Ivan went first.
Z, Y, X.
Then he got stumped. Uncle looked over to Kaysen. Z, Y, X, W, V. Uncle looked at both of them disapprovingly. He once again said,
Say the alphabet backwards.
Both attempted again. Both failed again. Uncle repeated,
Say the alphabet backwards. Are you listening?
Both attempted again. Both failed again. At this point, Uncle was clearly getting agitated.
You two are making this difficult for no reason. Once again, say the alphabet backwards. You need to follow simple instructions.
Both attempted again. Both failed again. This is when Uncle said,
You guys can't follow simple orders without making it complex, can you?
Kaysen had enough. He said, Uncle, we're trying our best, but saying the alphabet backwards is very difficult. Can you even do it? Uncle smiled at Kaysen.
Why, of course I can. Watch.
Uncle turns around so his back is facing Ivan and Kaysen. Then he begins saying,
A, B, C, D, E.
He finishes the entire alphabet. That's when Ivan and Kaysen said, Ah, that's what you meant when you said say the alphabet backwards? Uncle smirked.
You see, boys, this is your first lesson into creative writing. Writing and thinking are the same thing. The best writers are the best problem solvers.
Kaysen never made that connection before. He knew that writers were artistic and very expressive. He never viewed them as problem solvers. Kaysen thought that was more for the engineering types. Wait, Uncle, are creative people really problem solvers too? Kaysen asked.
Yes, writing is frozen thoughts. Those who know how to think effectively know how to write effectively over time.
Ivan had a question of his own.
What did the alphabet thing have to do with writing? Were you teaching us about problem-solving skills?
Uncle nodded his head. Then he followed it up with,
It's more than that, Ivan. The thing with plenty of newbie writers is that they make things unnecessarily complex. That's why their writing is messy and all over the place. This lesson with the alphabet showed that you don't need to be a rocket scientist to solve problems and think out of the box. Sometimes, the best way to become a better writer is by not being a rocket scientist. It's about being a child.
A child? Kaysen asked.
Yes, a child. How long do you think I made you wait out here?
Kaysen thought about it. At least 1 hour.
You waited here for 1 hour and 24 minutes. See, the thing with a child is that they have trust. Trust to a fault. Trust to a fault is a coveted trait of a writer.
Both Ivan and Kaysen asked, It is?
There is a creative spirit that lives in all of us. It seeks expression. Great writers are often conduits rather than the creators themselves. They only become a conduit by having unwavering faith and trust.
Kaysen nodded his head, but didn't agree with what Uncle was saying. There were plenty of occasions that Kaysen could see an adult having a childlike faith not being a good thing. The reason Kaysen felt like that was because he was having a lot of faith with that producer who said he wasn't going to put him on the show. The reason that he messed up was because he put too much faith in the sweet words, and he felt that the producer would look out for him. Kaysen had to shake off the bias. He felt like he was viewing a lot of reality from that disturbing moment, and it wasn't right. It was best if he gave this thing with Uncle a real shot. The both of them nodded.
I may make you kids do some things that you may not feel good doing, but understand that there is a method to my madness.
Uncle pointed the two over to a tree.
Okay, I want you to knock that tree down.
Ivan begins pushing at the tree. He's unable to knock the tree down. Ivan looks at Kaysen to see if he could do it. If Ivan can't do it, then Kaysen definitely can't. Ivan had way more muscles than Kaysen. Kaysen tries, and he's unable to knock the tree down. Uncle gets angry.
I said knock that tree down, the both of you. Knock that tree down right now.
Both Kaysen and Ivan rush towards the tree, trying to push it down, but they are unable to. Uncle yells again.
I said knock that tree down.
Ivan musters up more energy to say,
Uncle, we are trying, but the tree is way too strong.
Kaysen gets an idea. Knock the tree down. He looks at Uncle. Then he moves Ivan out of the way. Kaysen goes in front of the tree and turns his open palm into a closed fist. Then he begins gently knocking the tree from the top to the bottom. As he's knocking the tree down, he's looking at Uncle, and Uncle is looking back at him. They both begin smirking. Ivan looked at the two as if he was disappointed with himself for missing such an obvious clue.
Ah, that's what you meant.
Uncle looks at Ivan.
You feeling that, Ivan? The feeling of the answer having been there the entire time, and now you're just becoming aware? Well, that's what writing is often like. Writing is a big game of problem solving in a nutshell. Just know that the answers are a lot simpler than it looks. Whether it's a plot twist, creating a relatable antagonist, or finding the name of your main character, it's often the simplicity that has the most profound answers.
This was going to be a beautiful training. No clue why, but as Kaysen looked at Uncle, he began to have a childlike faith in the man. Even though he had never seen a writing from this man, there was a strong feeling in his mind that indicated to him that something was up. This was going to be a wild ride that he wasn't expecting. Chapter 15. Kaysen didn't come home till 3 a.m. He had to work at 7 a.m. in the sandwich shop. By the time he came back, he was exhausted. Now it began making sense why that singer was in such great shape and was training like a fighter. As they were training, Uncle had Ivan and Kaysen try to solve more problems. Problems that required a lot of critical thinking faculties. Even though Kaysen wasn't moving around a lot, he still felt tired at the end of the meeting. As he was in the car ride back with Ivan, he asked whether or not Ivan was tired. Ivan said,
Yes, Uncle said that those people who are thinking the most need to be in shape the most. The body burns faster when critical thinking is being exhausted.
He didn't know that was a thing. But Kaysen could see it. He was starving after the meeting, but it was too late to get something to eat. Probably would be best if he just slept in and snuck in a sandwich in the morning. No one would know. As he was walking into the hotel, the host looked at him in a grimacing way. Geez, Kaysen really did miss Brooke. He was thinking about that strategic risk. Would it be a strategic risk to pursue her even though she had a boyfriend? Technically speaking, she was the one who also gave her number to Kaysen. Maybe she was in a bad relationship. Kaysen had no clue what to think. But in this meeting with Uncle, he learned that he could think. Before this meeting, he didn't really ever look into problem solving. The acts of turning around and saying the alphabet and knocking the tree down were so simple, yet had a level of nuance too. It's like the mind had to be trained into simplicity to perceive the solutions. Earlier, when Kaysen was learning about writing, he thought it was just a creative act. But the way Uncle told him that writing was a masterclass on problem solving really fascinated his analytical mind. For a living, Kaysen would crunch numbers. He spoke the language of math and formulas. Could he cross-apply the world of math with the world of letters? The idea was fascinating to him. Here he was thinking so much about writing, but he didn't even write yet. Was he getting ahead of himself, or was this a good sign? One of the lessons from Uncle that stuck out was the childlike faith. As a kid, Kaysen was a daredevil for a short period. At that stage, he was the one who took risks, got in trouble, and made Billy look like the good one. As Kaysen looked at the mirror, he had no clue when that changed. When did he go from being that bold child into a timid adult? Kaysen thought about the human personality. If he were to get an X-ray of himself, he'd ask, where exactly is the personality? Is it on the brain area, the right leg, the chest? Where is the personality located? Kaysen was trying to change his personality, but he didn't even know where it was. Kaysen lied down and began looking at the ceiling. Even though he didn't know where his personality was located, he had this thrilled feeling about experiencing his internal world to make sense of his emotions. This would be his opportunity to get to know himself. He kept saying he wanted to be a different person after leaving the Bahamas. If he left today, there would already be a big difference. Therefore, mission was accomplished to a certain extent. Still, this was only the beginning.